Alright, now that you have your birds added into the sky, you're going to get the opportunity to add a few more objects sitting on the beach of whatever you want. So you want to pick objects that are going to make sense that they would be sitting on a beach and that are going to look naturalistic sitting on here. So a simple one that I like to do is just a beach ball. So I'm going to go ahead and Google search beach ball and look under the images. And I'm going to choose one of these images that has a white background. Now you can see pretty much all of them do, so that won't be too much of a problem. I want to get one that looks like it could be sitting outside. So how about this one? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and click on this one, get a big image up of it, right click, copy image, and go back to Photoshop. I can just hit Control V and the image will pop up. It's a little too big right now for me to work with. If I hit Control T, remember that's transform, hold the Shift key, and I'm going to make it a little smaller. Yours might come in bigger, depending on what image you choose. So I'm going to hit Enter to apply the transformation. Now to get rid of the white background, I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool. The fourth tool up from the top, it looks like a wand with a sparkler at the end. And click on the white. This should select all of my white for me. If it selects something on your object, it's probably because it's close to white, and you can deselect that by going to the Quick Selections tool, and if it has a plus, that means it's selecting. If you hold the Alt key, that'll be minus, and it can deselect the part. So let's say the blue got selected too somehow. This is all selected now. I can get my Quick Selections tool, hold down the Alt key, the minus will come up, and I will get rid of that blue, because I don't want that selected. Okay, so just my white is selected. Hit the backspace, and that'll just delete the white. Control D on your keyboard will deselect, and then you have your ball sitting there. I'm going to figure out exactly where I want it. I think I'll keep it over here. I'll maybe make it a little smaller. Alright, so it doesn't really look like it's realistically sitting there, and maybe you can figure out why. The people clearly have shadows underneath their feet where their feet touches the sand. If the ball was really sitting on the beach, it would also have a shadow. So we're going to go through quick how to make the ball have its own shadow. First I'm going to label my layer, ball. I'm going to make a copy of this layer by clicking on the layer, dragging it to the New Layer Panel button, and then it'll make this ball copy. Okay, now I want to select just the ball. I'm going to hold the Control key and click inside the rectangle. That will select only the ball. Now I want to turn this ball black. I need to first make sure that black is the color selected over here on my top box. If it's not, click on it once, it might be a different color, drag that slider all the way down so that it is black, and then hit OK. And then to fill this in now, the keyboard shortcut is going to be Alt Backspace. Makes my ball completely black. Control D will deselect it. Alright, so you might say, where did my beach ball go? Well, turn the eye off, it's right there behind it. But I want my shadow, obviously shadow should be behind the object, so I'm going to pull that ball copy down beneath the shadow. I'm going to go Control T, so I can transform that shadow, and I'm going to smush it, because it probably wouldn't be an exact circle since we're looking at this in perspective, and set it somewhere right under the ball. You can tell with the people that their shadows come straight down from where they are, so the ball shadow would come straight down from it, but probably only be slightly underneath of it. So right about there, it looks good. You can also use your arrow keys to move it more slightly if you want. You have to hit Enter at the end of a transformation. Now, obviously that shadow doesn't quite look realistic because it's just plain black. And usually with a shadow you can see a little bit of the detail of what's underneath of it. So what I need to do is increase the transparency, which means to be able to see through it. So on this layer, up here there's an option called opacity. Now, Opaque means you cannot see through something. Transparent means you can. So the opacity is how much you can see through it. 100% means you can't see through it at all. It's completely opaque. As I decrease the opacity, I'm basically increasing the transparency. So I'm just going to slide that down a little bit. These shadows are really dark over here. So my shadow can be really dark too, just not 100%. So I'll go about 75. Now the last issue we have to deal with is the fact that the edges of the shadow are really hard. And from what you probably know about shadows, usually they don't have hard edges. They're a little blurred. So we're going to apply a filter to the shadow layer that will make it have blurred edges. So I'm going to go under Filter at the top here, go to Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. Make sure Preview is checked so I can see what I'm doing here. And just to show you what this does, if I pulled it really far, it basically disappears because it blurs out so much, and you can see it kind of coming back into focus. And I think I'll go somewhere around between 9 and 10, just to give it a little bit of a blurred edge, and hit OK. Alright, so now my beach ball looks like it's sitting on the beach, it's got a nice shadow underneath of it, and it looks like it belongs. But what if my object is a little more complex? Let's try an umbrella, for instance. I'm going to Google search in my images umbrella. Pick one of these that I like. I'll go for this yellow one. Okay, so I'm going to copy the image, go back to Photoshop, Control V to paste. Way too big, so Control T, make it smaller. I think I'll try and fit it in over here. Okay, so I need to get my magic wand tool, click on the white, delete, Control D to deselect. And now I need to add my shadow underneath. So I'm going to label this layer umbrella and make a copy of it again. The copy, I'm going to hold the Control key and click inside there so my umbrella is selected. The black is still on top, so now I can go Alt Backspace and it'll fill in with black. Control D to deselect, and now Control T to transform. Now when you have an object that's not perfectly round, what you want to do is drag from the top so that you're basically kind of making a reflection of your object as the shadow. The problem here is I want this to look like this part of the umbrella is touching the beach along with the handle. Right now it looks like these are far apart, but if I were to drag this up, that looks goofy because these two wouldn't cross. The shadow would be right underneath the handle there. There's a couple ways I could fix this, but I'm going to give you the simple way. I am going to hit Enter, get rid of my umbrella copy. On the umbrella layer, I'm going to transform it. I'm going to rotate. When you see the little bent arrow, that means you can rotate. And I'm going to try and rotate it so that the handle and the umbrella are about straight across from each other, like so. And hit Enter and see how I did here. I make a copy of my umbrella layer, select it, make it black with Alt Backspace, deselect, and now transform, Control T. Okay. So I'm going to slide it up with my arrow keys until this lines up. Hit Enter, see how I did. Alright, pretty good. Now these are lining up. Excuse me, I need to make sure that the shadow layer is behind the umbrella. Okay, and if I think it would look more realistic, I can stretch that shadow off the page. That's fine. I like how that looks. So now I need to do what I did before. I'm going to decrease the opacity a little bit and put that filter, blur, Gaussian blur on it. It'll apply the filter the same as I did it the last time, which works fine for me. I'm going to hit OK. And now I have an umbrella sitting there on the beach too. So you need to add at least 2 objects to your beach, 2 or more, and they need to have realistic looking shadows underneath of them. So, good luck.